Oh, come on! This is Epictastic Joshua. Welcome back to the channel. We're talking about the first theatrically released superhero movie of the year 2024. Madam Web. I'm gonna say this right here and right now. I'm gonna get the grade out of the way. I'm giving this movie a skip you out of 5. Now, I'll tell you why I'm giving it that in just a minute, but this is the 4th movie of the Sony Spider-Man universe without a Spider-Man. This is directed by S.J. Clarkson, and it stars Dakota Johnson, Celeste O'Connor, Isabella Moner, Tahar Rahim, Mike Epps, Emma Roberts, and Adam Scott. In this movie, we follow a paramedic called Cassandra Webb as she confronts her past while trying to save 3 young women and their futures from Ezekiel Sims. While I'm trying to figure out what that simple plot is to do with anything with a Madam Web movie, I'm trying to figure out who thought this was a good idea. Lorenzo di Bonaventura, Sony, or Avi Arad. When it comes to Madam Web, well, let's get my thoughts on the Sony Marvel Universe out. I know some people bitched about the MCU and the DCEU, which we're getting rebooted as the DCU next year. When it comes to this Venom Sony Marvel Universe without Spider-Man, and the Venom movies, they're not great movies at all. I can enjoy them, but at the end of the day, I know how pretty disappointing they are. And Morbius was one of the worst movies I've ever seen from 2022. And as far as Sony goes, this is their 100th anniversary, right? They're celebrating 100 years worth of their movies, like stuff like the Jumanji movies and the Social Network and this masterpiece of a crime thriller, which we never got a fucking sequel to. This was them coming off a pretty successful year for them last year. You had Anyone But You had No Hard Feelings, and you had my favorite movie of the year, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. So with this, the minute they announced this movie, I was like, I don't know. What are you doing with this? We all just like, what are you doing? Madam Web is a character who is a nice supporting character in the MCU. No, I mean, a nice supporting character in the Spider-Man cartoons. And she's had some pretty good comics in the run too, but there's a reason why she's a supporting character. And I liked her in the animated cartoons. So, while I was against this, the cast had me a little bit more optimistic. And even with the negative reviews, I went into this optimistic because I like some of the cast. Dakota Johnson, I know everyone likes to punch bag her for 50 Shades, but she's a good actress outside of those. Isabella Moner, the lovely Sydney Sweeney, who had Anyone But You, Euphoria, Celeste O'Connor, Tahar Rahim, everyone. I was hoping this would not be as bad as it was. This movie is not the #1 worst movie ever, but if I had to make a list of the worst non-Marvel movies from the MCU, this would be on that list. This made me want to issue an apology to Supergirl 1984 or some of the other bad movies I don't like, because this movie is not very good. This is another one of the worst movies of the year. And we're only in February, so that should tell you something. So, let's start off with some of the only few redeeming qualities I can find in this movie. And I'll say this, I do not blame anyone in this cast for this. I will say the performances overall, they're fine. They are serviceable. I'll get to the problem with the performances a little bit later, but I will say that is actually one of the only few things in it, because I do think this cast is really damn trying. From Dakota Johnson to Sydney Sweeney to Isabella Moner, who's gonna be in The Last of Us and in Hawk Girl. Absolutely, they do fine for what they are given here. Especially Adam Scott and Emma Roberts. They kind of have no reason to be in here, but I think they do the best they can for what is given to them. The cinematography works. Some of the ideas, like you have an idea like this whole interesting concepts that could have been really awesome, like a Final Destination horror type thing on the superhero movie. If it was executed better and directed better, that sounds really intriguing to me, to do something fresh with this character. Some of the suspense thriller stuff is fine for a movie with not a lot of humor in it. The score is also tolerable. So that's all I got in terms of positives, because one mixed aspect is Ezekiel Sims. Now, I don't necessarily blame the actor for what he's given. I think the actor does fine for what is given, but there's just a few big problems with him. The good part of this is because it's a villain that we have not seen before, that you could actually do something interesting with that. The negative is that they don't take advantage of him enough. Unfortunately, this movie just has a plethora of problems. From here on out, we talking shit about this movie, because I'm just gonna tell you right now, the fact that this is from the same company who is celebrating their 100th anniversary, the fact that this is from the same company who's made movies like The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, The Social Network, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy, the Amazing Spider-Man movies, which I'm very hit and miss on. The fact that this is from the same company who went from the Jumanji movies, including the sequels with Karen Gillan, which I enjoy those sequels. Anyone But You, which brought back the rom-coms, and No Hard Feelings, and even two great masterpieces like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. For a movie that has this much production value for it, with this much talented cast behind it, for a movie that costs $80 fucking million, which I can appreciate, that's another positive. It's not all just in front of a green screen to actually go on the location. There is not a lot of passion when it comes to this, and you can clearly tell that there is plenty of movies out there that has movies that turn out bad because a lot of things go wrong, or studio interference or something like that. But you could tell that the directors, they were trying in those movies. They had promise. They were in the scripts. There were different editing tricks. They were trying to be creative, or the actors. You can feel some passion in here. There is not a lot of passion in this movie, and I'll say the script feels like they just went so out of left field, and they had so many ideas commissioned and set up that they just picked one that was gonna work. Cause this script feels like draft one bullshit. It feels like someone took a lot of interesting ideas and you just put it into only one draft. The fact that this movie, the fact that Dakota Johnson has been coming out during the press and saying she didn't know what movie this was, and the dialogue is some of the most unintentionally hilarious and some of the worst dialogue I've ever seen in a fucking superhero movie. And I've seen worse superhero movies like Green Lantern and fucking Supergirl 1984, even Batman and Robin and Superman 4: The Quest for Peace. I don't want to blame these actors, and these actors are definitely trying. Dakota Johnson, you can tell that she is not really given much to work with, and again, it's not really her fault, but it's just the way this movie is written and the way these characters are being played out. And there's so many moments where you're having emotional reactions and such, or character developments, and there's none of that in this movie. There is none of it in there. You had something that had an interesting project like Final Destination, and you just stabbed it in the head like a shard of kryptonite. And then not only that, this movie has probably one of the worst villains in this. Now, Ezekiel Sims, I don't want to attack this actor because it's not really his fault, but damn, it just feels like whoever was in charge of the ADR at times and whatever the hell is going on here, shame on you, because the ADR for the dialogue recording for this man, he was played by a French actor. It's seriously in utter shock with the freaking ADR and such. It feels like they could not match this man's voice. It's like, these girls are gonna kill me and I have to stop them. I had a vision that they were going to kill me, so I'm going to go out and kill them before they kill me, and I'm going to stop them. And there's moments where he's talking like that, but the fucking dialogue is not syncing up with him. And it just, he goes talk to random side characters for 10 seconds and such. And it's like, what the hell are we doing here? And the story doesn't set up anything interesting to be a great narrative. You would think for this movie being called Madam Web, we would go into her and Adam Scott's characters. And you do jack shit with it. He's more obsessed with focusing on these 3 young girls who are Spider-Woman. They're actually making Madam Web feel like a character in this all freaking movie, especially in the marketing where you have a kick-ass action scene, which I'll say there's maybe 1 or 2 action scenes I actually kind of liked, but that is not a spoiler. That's in the fucking marketing. And the marketing switcheroo, the fact that originally that they were going to have Spider-Man people in this, and you freaking take Andrew Garfield out, or Tobey Maguire, or freaking Tom Holland, which I'm glad that Tom Holland's name is not connected to this bullshit. The fact that they have moments with Emma Roberts and Adam Scott where he's like, I gotta go on a date with somebody, and you don't tell us his Aunt May or his Mary Parker, or they finna get ready to name the baby that they have, and you don't even have the freaking balls to call him Peter Parker. What the hell? But if that wasn't bad enough, not only that part fails being clever, this movie has the audacity to make a reference to Cassie and Maddie. You're basically trying to make references to Euphoria.
Bitch, you better be joking.
Fuck you. You do not get to do that, especially with Sydney Sweeney in this. That says a lot about how shitty your superhero movie is when you're trying to freaking disrespect Sydney Sweeney's name and her TV show in this. And don't get me wrong, Sydney Sweeney, attractive, beautiful, very talented, just like Isabella Moner and Celeste O'Connor and the rest of this cast here, but you can't do that. They've done great things. Sydney Sweeney is on the rise. She will recover this. Isabella Moner, she is basically a caricature where she's the Latina girl who is just like, now, and she just disappears. Sydney Sweeney is the one who is the sex symbol, and you familiar her in the school outfit, and you do nothing with her.
What the fuck is a fucking insane?
Celeste O'Connor from Ghostbusters Afterlife and a few other things. She's basically the spoiled rich girl. Do you get what I'm saying here?
What? English, motherfucker! Do you speak it? Yes! Then you know what I'm saying.
It feels like the direction in this movie is hacked up by the studio, because you can tell that S.J. Clarkson, she probably didn't know what she was doing either, because the way this movie is directed is like they don't do much with her, and this is the only thing she has directed so far as in terms of a movie. She's done TV work like Dexter and Heroes and Banshee and even shit like The Defenders and Succession. What the hell? Sony, You've had great competent directors in the past, like David Fincher, Jake Kasdan. You know why I like the Jumanji sequels so much as I do, and even though many people don't like them, you want to know why I enjoy those Jumanji movies? Because while they were going in a different direction, at least they felt competently directed. They had characters I like about, and it had some better edited stuff, which I'm gonna get to the editing. And at least I gave a shit about The Rock, Kevin Hart, Jack Black, Nick Jonas, and Karen Gillan as Ruby Roundhouse. I said it, and I'm not taking that back.
Now you listen.
Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I gave a shit about Daniel Craig and Rooney Mara's journey. The Spider-Verse movies. I gave a fuck about Miles Morales, Gwen Stacy, and Peter B. Parker, and any of the characters in either one of those first two movies so far. Even Tom Holland, Spider-Man, and Andrew Garfield, and Tobey Maguire. I'm not the biggest fan of the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies, but at least I somewhat gave a shit about him. And the fact that they just did what they did with Morbius and say we're not gonna have a Spider-Person in here, which you failed to do that in any of these movies, is beyond frustrating. But the most frustrating part of this is fucking boring! Holy shit, this movie, Madam Webb, this movie was so fucking boring. This was an hour and 56 minutes of boredom, of torture, and pain. It felt like 2 hours and 26 minutes. It felt like I was watching it felt like I was watching the last After movie, which I did not last year, by the time this movie actually ended. The way this movie is paced and the way this movie's edited with all the freaking quick zooms and shit, like zoom in, zoom out, zoom in, zoom out. I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to homage the 2000s, which you're obsessed with the 2000s way of making superhero movies. It's 2024, for God's sakes. Superhero movies have past evolved since this. I know some of them have not been the best recently, with Eternals, Love and Thunder, and some of the MCU stuff, or even the recent DCU stuff. But damn it, when they have better editing and better passion than you, that's a problem. And I don't even want to attack this editor and the director, because there's probably a different cut of this movie here. One of the director's main jobs of this movie is to get the best out of everything, despite the little they have to work with. And you epictastically fail at that, Sony. And my big thing with this movie my biggest thing with this film here. This is a studio that has millions and millions of dollars. And you don't want to connect this to, you're not doing anything with the Amazing Spider-Man movie, so you might as well connect it to that. But even then, Andrew Garfield will not want his name represented. You're doing movies without a Spider-Person. It's pissing people off. This is why you're not doing well with those superhero movies, Sony, aside from the Spider-Verse movies. Now, all your other franchises, like Jumanji, or even stuff like No Hard Feelings and Anyone But You, or standalone movies like The Social Network or The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, even some of your classic movies like Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, they at least made a profit. It has me fearful for Beyond the Spider-Verse, which I'm not gonna give up on them. And the sad thing is, I love Sony as a company. I love Columbia Pictures. I love TriStar Pictures. I love Screen Gems. They give me some great movies. They give me some bad movies. They give me some overlooked ones, some underrated gems, some okay movies, even some guilty pleasures. And I still have hope for this company when they're not doing movies like this. When you have movies that are original, or something like Spider-Verse or Jumanji 4 or something else, they can be on, when they put effort into what they do, they can have some of the best movies of all time, and some of the guilty pleasures, even some overlooked gems. But when you have movies like this with Avi Arad and Lorenzo di Bonaventura, which I respect him as a producer, but not like this. When you have Avi Arad who does not give a fuck about the source material, who does not give a fuck about any of these supporting characters, you got a motherfucking problem up your ass. Because of stuff like this in Morbius, why I will go ahead and say this right here and right now. No matter if Kevin Feige has characters like Deadpool, even if you have competent people, a character like Gwenpool should never have a live action movie, ever. You can do Gwenpool in animation or as a supporting character, that's fine. What really pisses me off is that you have some people over here saying, Josh, you're gonna overreact. It's not that bad. It's not the worst movie ever. You're taking it a little bit too personal. Sometimes I can agree. I can end up enjoying something that a lot of people hate. A movie can be unacceptably trash, but also there's bad movies exist. This is not the worst movie I've ever seen, but when you have this level of production quality, when you have this level of talent involved, again, I see why Olivia Wilde said fuck you to this movie. Thank God for you, Olivia Wilde. You do not deserve to have your name on this bullshit. Go do something better. The fact that you have that much of a budget and talent in front of the camera and behind the camera, and the fact that this is one of my favorite movie companies, and you have so many years, so many decades of good movies, great comic book movies, bad comic book movies, unintentionally bad, guilty pleasures, okay, disappointing comic book movies, all of the above, that this is lessons to be learned on how to make a comic book movie, and not to make a comic book movie. With the Spider-Verse movies being some of your biggest highest grossing movies, especially No Way Home, with the $1 billion they make, and the fact that you want to fight with Kevin Feige over not doing a grounded level story, which is what needs to be done in the first place in Spider-Man 4, and you gonna do some shit like this, makes me question you sometimes, Sony. This is your 100th anniversary, man. I'll tell you this right here and right now. Beyond the Spider-Verse, Jumanji 4, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, any original film that's not a part of a franchise that you're gonna do. The Zelda movie, because Nintendo fans are really gonna be cautious about that until we get looks about it, which the Nintendo CEO is producing. Even Bad Boys 4, which I'm very excited for, they better, and I mean they all better, make up for the 3 Sony Marvel Universe movies you're about to release this year. And they better be worth quality. Whether they're great masterpieces, even the Spider-Gwen movie and the live-action Miles Morales you plan to do, they better be on some kind of quality. Great, masterpiece, good, okay if problematic, or at least laughably bad. And they better make up for whatever this is. Jumanji 4, Spider-Man 4, anything that you do that's a franchise that has Spider-Man involved, his character, Miles Morales, Gwen Stacy, or even Bad Boys 4, or even an original film, they better make up for this sorry excuse of a film. Because if they don't, you're gonna be so sorry. Put effort into those movies' future endeavors I just mentioned, and I might end up giving you the benefit of the doubt, as I have in the past. You are too good of a company to still be doing crap superhero movies like this. You make Supergirl in 1984 look like a fucking Academy Award winner right next to Catwoman. I don't like that movie as much anymore, but I'd rather still watch the Halle Berry Catwoman movie over this. Also, the fact that we have an age where we have movies getting scrapped, like Batgirl and Coyote versus Acme, which those movies should be seeing the light of day. Thank God the lawmakers are looking into that. The fact that you're scrapping a Netflix movie with Halle Berry, which is not even from you, baffles the living hell out of me. Stop scrapping movies and stop taking stuff off your streaming services for tax refunds. It's embarrassing. It's causing a lot of controversy. In conclusion, Madam Web, almost little to nothing redeemable about this. You could tell everybody did not want their names on this project. The only things I'll give this movie credit for is for you had interesting ideas, especially with the Final Destination type stuff. This cast is desperately trying. There's a few things in terms of action I like. So I will give the movie that, but besides that, my grade stands. If you enjoy this movie, more power to you. I will not take anything away if you enjoy it. I'm glad you enjoy it. I just couldn't do it. If you defend this movie, tell me why. If you hate this movie just as much as I do, let's have a civilized conversation about this. That's all I want to do. Whether you love this movie or you hate this movie, or even you find it a guilty pleasure, I get very little pleasure out of this, and I was hoping this would at least be so bad it's good. Had you have done that and be more self-aware and not be so freaking dull or boring, I would have been able to be like, this movie's not good, but I can laugh at it. All I'm saying right now, to close this off, Sony, do fucking better. Those future endeavors you're making, like Jumanji 4 and Spider-Man 4, Zelda, any of that, even an original film, do better. Learn from your fucking mistakes. Give the rights back to Marvel if you can't do a supporting movie right. Do the MCU Spider-Man movies and Spider-Verse and Gwen Stacy and stuff. Do better, Sony. You're too good of a company. Do better. Well, that's going to do it for the video that you just watched. If you want to see more, my channel icon is up here. If you want to see more content from me, all my social medias are right here in this end card. I will also leave a playlist and a video here for you to see what the channel is about. As always, acknowledge me, stay Epictastic, join the Epictasticness, and you guys keep it cool.